And you don't get people talking much about the Virginia Resolution,
Right.
which you learn more reading James Madison's Virginia Resolution. You'll learn more about the intended proper form and function of the Constitution than you would in a 4-year bachelor
Can
degree.
we pause on that for a second? Just because I think, like, you're right. Like, if you were to take, so much of what the founders, or what Madison, will say it that way,
Mhm.
what Madison believed about the role of government,
Mhm.
and you know, how um, how much influence they should have in our daily life. I think you can find that in that resolution, and you learn so much. So can you give a little context to that, and maybe just tell, like, what is that, and what is he saying?
Well, remarkably, that also has uh, a very narrow and timely nexus with what's going on today.
And
Because
by the way, and I'm sorry to interrupt. I think I totally forgot what I was going to say. So I apologize for interrupting.
no, you're right. So you know how President Trump was using the Alien Enemies Act
Mhm.
as a justification for deportation. I'm not going to walk that road, but the Alien Enemies Act was part of a package of legislation uh, promoted by President John Adams, basically curtailing the freedom of speech, basically saying, if you in any way criticize the president, you can be held criminally liable, which is ridiculous, right? And so Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, they get together and they're like, we've got to do something about this, because Thomas Jefferson's own congressman was arrested for, during a campaign for Congress, he had written, a pamphlet like we do today. He'd published a pamphlet criticizing the Adams administration, and he was arrested. So Thomas Jefferson loses his mind and says, all right, we got to get together. So Thomas Jefferson pens the Kentucky Resolution,
Mhm.
and the companion resolution, the Virginia Resolution, was penned by James Madison, and basically says the states came together as principals, entered into a contract with each other, creating an agent. That agent is the federal government. That contract is the Constitution. And if the agent, that is to say the federal government, exceeds the boundaries of authority granted to it by the states in the Constitution, then the states are duty bound. In other words, they must refuse to enact any unconstitutional act of the federal government. That's what they say in a nutshell. And if you read them, and so please do yourselves a favor, read the Kentucky resolutions and Virginia resolutions, which I include in the book. I might not include Kentucky, but I know I include Virginia in the book. Um, and you learn how the founding fathers, the men who, as the famous book calls them, the witnesses at the creation,
Yeah.
how they saw the Constitution, how it was created, how it was intended to function, and who was intended to be the arbiter of whether the federal government had exceeded its constitutional authority.
Right.
Who was intended? Was it the Supreme Court? Was the Supreme Court intended? No. The states were intended. And it can be all the states, it could be one state at a time, right? Now, that doesn't mean that, and the decision of each state is independent of the others,
Right.
as co-principals in this contract that created the agent, the servant known as the federal government. But and so the Virginia resolution passed. um yeah, and so that's what it is.
And
It's one of these things that you're not going to find it. You might find a mention of it in a high school American history textbook, but definitely no explanation of it, because to explain it would would when give students the power they need to pull down the playhouse of the
right.
plutocrats.
Right.